What is the most ridiculous / fucked up lie your parents told you? A lot more tame than the other ones here, but my mum once told me not to sleep on my left cause that causes pressure on your heart. Not sure how true that was, but I was nervous for years whenever I had to sleep on my left side. Not too fucked up, but ridiculous. When I was little, my mom told me if I didn't finish my dinner my stomach would get very hungry and come up and eat my brain. A few nights later I woke her up at midnight crying because my stomach growled and I needed a second dinner or it would eat my brain. My dad got fed up of watching Barney the dinosaur when I was a kid, and one day when I asked to watch it, he said, "You can't." Why? Because Barney died. I never did watch Barney again. When I was a kid my father told me about the can. He said it contained a family secret of incredible value, and that when I turned 18 I could see it. On my 18th birthday I asked my father about the can. He said the fuck is the can? And after I reminded him of it, he burst out laughing, saying that he was fucking with me. For almost a decade I believed that I would be privy to some cosmic secret on my 18th birthday. Turns out I'm just very impressionable. Around the time Toy Story first came out, my dad drove an Infiniti, and he told us that he could press a button and go to infinity and beyond. To jump over other cars he'd have us close our eyes and press the button and he'd speed up and pass the car in front of us while our eyes were closed. As a kid I was DUMBFOUNDED and thought he was magic. It's actually a nice memory compared to the other ones on here lol. That if I didn't brush my teeth, tiny teeth goblins would sneak into my room at night and pull out my teeth while I slept. I was genuinely afraid of the teeth goblins. That my siblings, and I had a sister named Alice. Apparently she wouldn't stop talking in the car so they dropped her off on the side of the road. Never spoke on road trips ever again. We used to have a farm when I was a kid. My uncle gave me few hens he had, and I told my dad that I want them to have baby chicks and sell them. He told me we need to buy you a rooster for your hens. I said why? They lay eggs, and they don't need to have a male around. He told me the eggs won't be fertile, and will never hatch. But what can a rooster do to make it hatch? He picks the back of their necks. Well, I can do that with a needle every day. And then he farts in their butts. The worst part I remember is me running to my mom after we went home to tell her about my recent discovery. I lived with my grandma until I was 16. My mom is currently telling me that never happened, and she never left me with grandma. I guess I imagined my entire childhood. Editing to add, lived with doesn't do it justice. Grandma raised me. I alternated weekends between my mom and dad, but I'm sure her 4 days a month are made up too. My dad died in a car accident a few years ago. And till this day my mom says that he is still on vacation. I don't know if it is a coping method for her, but I haven't said anything about it. Had a somewhat abusive father growing up. Only bone I ever broke was his handiwork. Both he and my mother insist to this day that it never happened. That I broke my foot in a marching band accident. Must have just slipped my mind. Wasn't surprised when the term gaslighting became more prevalent in society. That it's illegal to turn the light on in the car while driving. That my eyes turn orange when I lie. So I covered my eyes when I lied so my mom couldn't see them turn F-seeking orange. My mom lied about my father's death for 9 years until my brother posted the anniversary of him hanging himself. He's my half-brother, same dad, different mom. A lot of these are sad, so here's a silly nice one. My birthday is the 11th of July. The gas station 7/11 gives away free slushes on 7/11. At 7, 8, and 9 years old my parents just told me that the 7/11 wanted to celebrate my birthday by giving me free slushes, and I did not question it. I thought the gas station just really liked me. My dad once told me if I didn't say a single word the whole way home, he'd take me to Arby's. In the driveway, I came to the realization that we couldn't go to Arby's, as we were home. Me. We're not going, are we? Him. Well, you talked just now, so guess not. Edit. A lot of PPL are hating on my dad, so I'm going to add some relevant context. 1. He's not an asshole. He's always been a great dad. 2. He was deployed overseas and was only able to visit us once a year, for about 2 weeks at a time. 3. I only begged for Arby's if my mom made casserole, which was my dad's favorite dish, and my least favorite. It had mushrooms, which 14-year-old me hated. While deployed, he ate a lot of subpar food. Those 2 weeks were the only time he could eat real, homemade cooking, whereas I got it every day. Of course he wouldn't want to take his kids to fast food when we could have a real meal together. 4. He explained these facts to me every time after my Arby's tantrums. I was often too young and bratty to acknowledge his sacrifices. Don't hate on my dad, please. He's a stellar guy. I meant the above story to be humorous. If I acted up, my mom would say she was sending me to the hospital to be put down. It really fucked me up. She even drove a sobbing, puking me to the hospital to be put down one day. She said she would give me a second chance, and didn't take me in. Gaslighting. About obviously wrong, or easily disputable things. Like, I hated the babysitter I had from age 3 to 4. She was a bitch, who favored boys, and didn't much like me either. I was an easygoing kid, but I hated her. My mother insisted all the way through college that I loved this woman. We'd go back to visit my hometown, and she'd force me to skip seeing my friends to visit this lady. At 16, these visits would go something like, "Hi. Oh, it's you asterisk." And then she'd ignore me, and talk to my mother while I stared at a wall, and nodded politely until we could leave. My mother doubled down on this every time I disagreed until one visit back to the church we used to attend, social center of small towns. This lady saw my mother coming, and began the conversation with, "Wasn't it funny how much your daughter and I always hated each other? I only watch little boys these days. Can't stand girls." My mom briefly attempted to convince both of us that we shared fond memories, but by that point we were approaching 20 years of mutual dislike. It was a bit absurd. Deleted reading these comments thinking that having one alcoholic parent feels normal now, because y'all have messed up childhoods. When I was younger I learned that mushrooms were a fungus, and refused to eat them. My dad made me some soup with mushrooms in it, and I threw a fit about eating it. So he inspected the bowl, and told me they were whale toes. Apparently I was old enough to know that mushrooms were a fungus, but not old enough to know that whales didn't have feet. My parents told me we had to leave the zoo, because they let the animals out at closing time. If I eat too much Halloween candy I will turn into an Oompa Loompa. My mom told me I had prostate cancer once when I was around 11. I'm a female. When my parents didn't want to go through the effort of having me join a sport or a club at school, they just told me I would be terrible at it and should give up. When my dad wanted me to stop bothering him, he would send me on aimless errands. Go to the shed and get me the chain stretcher. I'd be looking for hours. They told me kids came from a government agency called the CAA, Child Assignment Agency, and that they could exchange me whenever they want, if I ever misbehaved. They told me they were eyeing a well-behaved little girl, but hadn't decided yet. They used it against me for years. That the music meant the truck was out of ice cream. Parents always claimed we were a poor family growing up, so didn't have money for sport clubs/hobbies, or expensive school trips. Got older, and realized it was due to the amount of money they would spend on weed. They still don't see it as an issue to this day. It's not that fucked up, but it's kind of a revenge story. When I was very young, my parents told me I couldn't get carbonated soft drinks cause they said it was bad for me, and I could die. Mind you, I was an hyperactive kid at the time. At one point I got a genius idea. I lived with my mother, and my father would pick me up every weekend. My plan was Friday evening when my father would pick me up, I would tell him Mom gave me Coca-Cola cause she said it's okay, you're going to your father's anyway, and at this moment my father accepted the fake challenge I have given him. The next Sunday evening my father gave me like a 1L of 7-Up just before dropping me off. So I was pretty excited. My mother asked me like, what's up with you? And I told her pretty much the same thing. Dad gave me 7-Up cause he said it's okay, you're going to your mother afterward anyway, and then my mom took on the challenge too. They never spoke about it out loud, it was kind of a war, and I was the instruments. What they didn't know was that I was the evil mind behind it all. So all in all, I got my revenge. I got carbonated soft drinks, and they never learned the truth until I told them years later.